So welcome everyone to the Ultimate Supply Chain Podcast Season 2. We're keeping the same drive to answer your supply chain burning questions, but focusing more on bringing thought leadership from external and diverse and different perspectives across our topics. I'm Louise Barber, Global Head of Marketing at DHL Supply Chain, and I'll be your host for this series. I'm delighted to be joined today by Tatjana Vorobjova, Director at Clinical Supply Chain Logistics, Global Network Partnerships at BMS. Tatjana is a true clinical logistics enthusiast, a great leader and problem solver who's got over 17 years of experience in the clinical logistics supply chain. Tatjana, welcome to our podcast.
Hello, Lou. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to have an engaging conversation with you.
Yeah, me too. Before we start, can you just tell us a bit about your story and where your journey and passion for the clinical logistics supply chain started?
Okay, my story. Where shall I begin? My degree is in business management and administration. So my journey with pharmaceutical industry and clinical supply chain was really a matter of being at the right time in the right place. At the time, there was a job opening for one of the largest pharmaceutical CMOs in the area where I live, here in UK, close to my home. And a friend of mine in my social network that I developed offered me to apply for the job. And I was ready. I was ready for the new challenge. I was ready for a new start. And so it was a good combination of timing. I applied. The recruiting manager, the hiring manager, seemed to be drawn and particularly liked my knowledge of languages and multicultural background, which gave me, I think, competitive advantage and effectively helped me secure the job at the end. And here I am today. The rest is history, as they say. Today, that I grow and I develop with being part of pharmaceutical industry and clinical supply chain. My job grounds me in my sense of purpose. It really provides me and adds to that purpose of and enabling me to grow both personally and professionally. It enables me to add that little bit of a difference for a greater world and for humanity in general. And that multicultural background. I love people. I love to understand why people do and how people do what they do, understand their why. So that multicultural background, I think, continues to give me that edge in creative thinking, in people skill, in enabling and encouraging the diverse viewpoints in every decision that I made. And I'm a true believer in teamwork, Lou. And to me,
Definitely,
team is, talents can win games, but teamwork and intelligence can win championships. So here I am today.
for sure. And it's interesting. Well, a couple of things I'd say to respond to that. A lot of the people that I get to talk to, we all seem to wander into logistics by accident. And it sounds like you're no different in that regard. So Tatjana, when we were speaking offline, we had a long conversation about the fact that DHL's brand promise is connecting people, improving lives, and how strongly you feel that clinical logistics is at its essence a people's business. How could we focus on people just as well as just the operations?
I think it's a very right question to ask, Lou, and I'm happy that we're having this conversation. People effectively who enable that clinical supply chain logistics operation, right? People who overcome the challenges that we see right now, multifaceted challenges in the world, and people deal with those challenges differently, right? So we need to have that people pillar up front in every planning, in every preparedness step that we do to fortify our supply chain, right? To make that our preparedness better. We need to put people up front because effectively our purpose as biotech organization and pharmaceutical industry is to for greater humanity, right? So we're talking about the people as the patients, we're talking about people as caregivers, we're talking about people as the friends and the family. It affects us all, and the people who are actually at the heart of the supply chain that make that drug discovery and delivery possible. So I can't state enough, and I can't say enough that when we do the planning, when we look at our supply chain, right, and when we look at our preparedness, those conversations about people as one of the pillars should be top minds for leadership, and it's significantly important. I think we see a lot of talent wars at the moment, right? Talent retention is another very significant aspect of it, because
Completely.
what it taught people, all these challenges, everybody responds to it differently, right? So people choose to do something different. We all choose to do potentially something different to what we used to do. We find different purpose because we had a lot of time to stop and think and be mindful. So it is important. And to me, we should be talking about heroes every day. Those heroes that come to work, that get up and get going, those heroes of supply chain. That's how I refer to, I don't
keep the whole thing moving.
Exactly. I just think about it every day. I don't wait for another disaster to happen for us to see that hero, people acting as heroes. I think every day that we do, we are, because we're at the heart of delivering that promise to our patient and to our
for sure.
world.
I was talking to another guest earlier in the week, Radu, and we were having the conversation about how important it is for supply chain leaders to have a really firm understanding of what they do, but also have a real sense of who they are, their authenticity, what they bring to work every day. And I think perhaps that's one of the changes we've seen over the last year or so, where new entrants coming into the market are very passionate about sustainability, for example, or very passionate about being meaningful in the choices they make of the suppliers they choose. So that's a big change that, as you say, is going to make a difference to recruitment, new people coming into the supply chain, as is things like digitalization. The new people coming into the supply chain world, they're digital natives. Are you seeing that a lot in the supply chain for clinical logistics?
Absolutely. The focus on digitalization, the focus on enabling in the correct way that machine learning, enabling, the functions of AI or artificial intelligence. It certainly is a big focus of each organization. The important piece is to do it right and to do it the right way. You're very right, Lou, in saying that young talents that apply now for the jobs in supply chain, they're very technology savvy, or more technology savvy than what we've seen, right? But I also see that trend changes in IT as a function, information technology as a function in general, right? We have people applying for the jobs as IT with PhD degrees, with MD degrees, right? So this is really going to serve that purpose of combining that technical, academical skill and advancing that drug development. So the way I see the technology, digitization helping us advance is really, or drug development advance is really a combination of chemistry, biology, and computer science. That computer science piece, it's a big element for it, because we have so much data. As I was reading an article on data, and I think we all know, right? We have an enormous amount of data out there. And I think the biggest challenge right now is how we utilize that data and how we hone in on what we need to extract from that data in order to help us to get to that drug to market quicker, fast, in the most efficient and effective way to the end user. So undoubtedly, technology, digitization is a big element and a big focus of organization. And it's, I see personally, and again, I'm not an expert in AI. I'm curious about it for sure. And I, try and educate myself as much as I can. I see it as something that will help us, not something that will take away from people, which I think is a wrong misconception. that exists there, that machines will replace us. That's not the case here, right? We're utilizing that machine learning to help us make our decisions quicker and effective, right? So that we can spend that time doing strategy. We can spend that time focusing on people, right?
Yeah.
Focusing on what people need. So I really see that. I'm excited what's going on in the world with the technology advances. I look at it cautiously, Lou. I must say, everything that's going on in AI, what's going on in ChatGPT, it needs to be regulated, right? We need to have guidelines. We need to have regulations. When we talk about the data, we know it could be very useful, but we could also harm, right? So we need to be very cautious when we think about it.
Completely. I mean, it's the same for me in marketing. Taken to the ultimate, you can see ChatGPT doing all of the design, all of the writing, or something like ChatGPT, generative AI, producing all of the marketing material that needs to be produced. But what differentiates us, what gives us our voice is probably the people element. So for me, I'm thinking, how can generative AI, how can digitalization help me be more efficient? How do I balance that about effectiveness, which tends to come from the more judgment-based input that comes from people? Is that the same with you? Because I'm thinking about my customer experience. You must be thinking about your patient experience and how you get that mix right.
No, absolutely. It is absolutely the same with me, Lou. I want to share a very inspiring story talking about ChatGPT, right? I read an article in People's Magazine a couple of days ago about mother of a young son suffering with pain, a condition for 3 years, going through multiple doctors, different specialists, 17 different consultants,
Wow.
not being able to give a diagnosis to treat the condition. And it was a rare neurological condition. Was brave, and she put her results of the imaging, results of all the conversation and analysis that she received from doctors into the ChatGPT, and it suggested her that this might be, this rare neurological condition. With that, she went and found the right specialist, and she confirmed that diagnosis. So stories like that inspire me. Stories like that really need to be front minds, for us to how we utilize that technology that exists. And coming back to your point that artificial intelligence versus, it's never going to be good to us in itself alone as artificial intelligence. It always has to be in combination with artificial intelligence and human intelligence.
Definitely.
Right? Because the computers cannot feel, they cannot understand the emotions. I mean, there are a lot of advances in that space, but not to the level. It's never going to be replaced by the human element and that human intelligence. So it's always, I look at it as always a combination that will give us those, advances and will enable us to, enable the future of medicines.
Completely agree. I mean, another example, my nephew is currently in hospital just recovering from cancer. And the progress that has been made with analysis and the digitalization of the analytics that have come back from the tests that have been taken are amazing. And they share the charts with him, which is great because, he's a young lad, he's 27,
Yeah.
Knowledge is power. He wants to see all that data, but he also wants to have it packaged by a human who can turn that into, and this is why you're feeling this way, or this is what the next step is. And I think the benefit of all of the advances of technology mustn't be outweighed by that very human side that has to come into an industry like clinical logistics or medicine.
Absolutely.
Or whatever that happens to be. And I guess, again, that's where that comes back to, people being expert in the field, but actually having that effective leadership and having people at the heart of what it is you guys are doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thank you for sharing the story, Lou. It gives me shivers, listening to those stories. And I absolutely agree with you that knowledge is a power. You alluded to that knowledge is a power. And again, coming back to talking about the difference in generations, right? New generation not afraid of that knowledge, not afraid of that data, right? Not
No, he
afraid
wants it.
to look at. Yeah, exactly. And that's, I think, that I see the big difference. And I like that difference. I like that that edge and that advantage that it gives us, that we're not afraid. We are preparing for something. To do a parallel, right? When I think about supply chain, what will enable us to continue to be successful, right? In this multifaceted changes and challenges that are going on right now, internally with every organization and externally in the world, what will give us that advantage, right? So two things, and I think I touched on the teamwork and collaboration spirit in general. For me, it's really two things. It's collaborations with the peers for the best practices, collaborations with the regulatory bodies, right? To really, for us to be open about, have an open conversation rather than, have a challenge that we need to overcome. And that analysis of the existing data, right? That will enable that preparedness for us. And that's what will give the success to supply chain. That will give us that scale, right? For the growth, ability to grow, ability to scale, and ability to remain intact, and ability to remain and effective, right? So and I absolutely agree.
Yeah, I mean, I guess again, looking at what I'm seeing in the hospital at the moment, for example, I see very much a move towards very personalised prescription. Every prescription, I mean, the days of generic treatment seem to have gone. I wonder what impact digitalisation is having on clinical trials, for example. I'm guessing they're far less centralised than they used to be, and that has to surely impact the hit rate, if you like, of these very precise, personalised prescriptions.
No, absolutely. Yes, it's a trend that I'm hoping will continue. I think particularly in the time of pandemic outbreak, right? It's sort of open that door, which, decentralized clinical trials, what you're referring to, they were not new 3 years ago. They were not new, but there were not enough advances are made, and not enough interest, I think, and not enough investments are made to make this, to enable it in a most effective way. And when I think about decentralized clinical trials, and when I think those advances, it is really the question at the heart to me is how we make it the most effective way to run that clinical trial to our patients, to investigators, to caregivers, right? Because there's that, there's another side, and to people, in the supply chain effectively. And there's three elements of that, right? Patient safety, data quality, and data integrity, and integrity of clinical trial. When we're talking about, decentralized clinical trial and advantages of utilizing technologies, again, we draw in the parallels here with the technology, but it needs to be a right technology and easy enough technology for the end user, right? That's the only way to advance it, to make it, to make it a useful utilization, right, of that technology. Because we cannot start throwing all of these different software, different systems that will...
It's got to be easy.
Add another stress. It needs to be done the right way. Exactly.
Yeah, it absolutely has to be easy. But I'm guessing that the benefits are astronomical. You know, being able to get that patient diversity as a result of the decentralized clinical trials is enormously beneficial.
Yes, no, it's absolutely beneficial from diversity, as you say, patient population. It's beneficial from enrollments rates, right? So the clinical trials, because it's easier for a lot of patients, again, depending on their personal circumstances. But I cannot state enough, right? When we plan those decentralized clinical trials, when we know, the protocols, when we know the indication, we really, again, and I'm coming back to the same point, put the people at front, patient at front, understand their story, understand what it's for how it is for them to be part of that clinical trial. What do they need to make it easier? What do the caregivers need to make it easier? To me, that's again an important question and an element every time in every step. People, patients,
how they come together
at the front of our decisions making.
So what's the impact of digitalization and the enhancements of technology on you being able to reach patients, on direct to patient type solutions?
So reaching the patient, direct to patient, is a lot to do, I think, with the transportation as well as technology that's effectively at the heart of the centralized clinical trial, but is really, partnering with the companies that have that expertise, that have that ability to scale, that have that ability to adapt and understand the regulatory landscape in every locality. A lot of most of those trials are global, so it's really a combination of technology and right strategic partners, right, that have that expertise, that have that intelligence, and on an ongoing basis, because today is not going to be the same as tomorrow, right?
For sure.
Or yesterday.
For sure, it's moving so quickly. Yeah. Has that advance changed your ways of working, your target operating model much?
It has, in a way. We have enabled in our operation direct to patient shipping, particularly when we were still in the midst of a pandemic and when the hospitals were still opening up. We adjusted based on the regulatory landscape again, because as much as I'd like that trend to continue, and as much as I'd like us to all have that seat at the table with the regulator and have that discussion that we need to continue to enable it, some regulations have got back to what it used to be. So in the sense that, it was only enabled as a critical measure to respond to a critical situation.
Pandemic, sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it suddenly changed. It enabled us to respond very quickly. It enabled us to retain our patients. We set up this DTP operation again as a response to a critical situation. But right now, the way the organization, I look at it, and we look at it in our supply chain, is really those clinical trials where we see a huge benefit and potential, and where we enabling that function would be beneficial to patients, right, and be beneficial, sure, of course, to clinical trial, to enrollment rates, and convenience. I think one of the better word of putting it, right, for the patient. So it's really still somewhat of a bespoke solution. It's not completely operationalized, but that modality certainly exists, and it's not going away. Hopefully never, right?
Well, quite. I mean, I think the pandemic was terrible, but there are some things that have come out of it that have absolutely accelerated growth and progress for humanity in general. So, all of that said, what do you think's next? What's next for where do you see the future of clinical logistics, if you had to guess?
Yeah, I think the future of clinical logistics to me is continue to fortify your supply chain in the sense where you look at your global operation, look at your manufacturing sites, look at your supply sites, right? Look to minimize those local disruptions. Again, collaborate with peers, collaborate with the regulatory, continue to enhance and evolve that predictive analytics into every step of our supply chain. So we look at those challenges head on, right? And we proactively seek the solutions rather than respond to it. That what we've seen a little bit right now. But an interesting element, Lou, and I'll share it with you. It really resonated with me, again, reading an article. When we talk about amount of change that we're undergoing right now, that population, humankind is undergoing right now, it's more change that we we have a history to refer to or research to refer to, right, happening on a daily basis, right? So we need to adjust a little bit in our thinking to all become futurists in the sense that we can deal with that change now at today, and only by sailing fast and right and creating that
to be said.
pace, exactly, we will be advanced, we will be ahead of it. And I know when we talk about pharmaceutical industry, it's highly regulated industry, right? And so failure is not something that we talk about easy, because of course we need to do every step of operation and the compliant in a very regulated manner, because the implications are very high. But in general, every step that we do in our thinking, in our strategies, in our decision making, that mindset of failing fast, because then that's the only way for us to create that history, because we don't have the research to refer to at the moment to understand how we need to manage these changes that are happening to us right now.
It's so true. You fail fast to progress fast, actually. And,
exactly.
You know, the enablement that we have as a result of advances in technology and the result of so much data being available to us is that we can scale fast too.
Absolutely.
And I think the combination of those puts us in a really, really interesting time for all sorts of technology advancements that impact our supply chain, whether it's in clinical logistics or other areas of the supply chain. But I think what I really like about your area, about the clinical logistics areas, is it really does touch people in a very special way and really does bring to life how a supply chain really can connect people and improve lives.
No, absolutely. And, you know, if you ask me what motivates me, right, continue to my work and continue my journey in clinical supply chain logistics, and I shared my story, right? I just arrived at it. I wasn't planning, right? But I was there. It's really that sense of pride and joy. So there's two elements, and pride comes from seeing how that that teamwork, that the people that have that seat at the table to make those decisions, to find those solutions, succeed, right? Because we enable and we encourage that diverse. This is, the new leadership, the encouraging. This is our responsibility as leaders to enable and encourage the diversity of viewpoints and that inclusivity. It's not just another stripe line that organization will have. It is our responsibility as leaders to do that. But to see that success and to see that progress in the team and in everybody individually, it motivates me. It gives me pride. It gives me joy.
Of course. And like I say, of all aspects of the supply chain business, as a whole, there are days when I think, we may not meet that SLA, or, I think of my own team, my own marketing team, where sometimes people will say, oh, this has gone wrong and that's gone wrong. And I think, we're not curing cancer. Some days you guys are.
Yeah.
So it makes a huge difference. So, Tatjana, thank you so much for talking to me today. Your insights have been truly amazing. I've really enjoyed talking to you. One of the best things about doing this podcast series is I get to meet people that I wouldn't normally meet. And you've been a delight. You and I have had a real laugh offline, and it's been a real delight to talk to you online. So thank you so much. I'm confident our audience will get real value from our conversation today and listening to your insights. Thank you to our listeners, whether you're joining us on our website or through Spotify or on YouTube. Please stay tuned for our upcoming episodes. And if there's something you'd like to know about in the supply chain industry, in logistics as a whole, please let me know. Give us some feedback. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. And we look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thank you.
Louise, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to share my story and my viewpoint. It's been great.
Not at all.
All right. Thank you.